Hey everyone, welcome back. My name is Gita, and you're watching the official channel of the United Federation of Phoenix. We are among the country's oldest science fiction clubs. We've been around since the 70s. So we've been meeting since then and having an awful lot of fun doing sci-fi related activities. So this is the next one in a series of interviews I'm doing with our UFP club members, just so you get to know us a bit better. And after that, I'm going to be having some really incredibly fun discussions on sci-fi movies and shows, and it's going to be very animated, and I'm going to keep it really interesting and entertaining, for you. So hopefully you'll join us then again. So today I have a very interesting guest. It was very hard to get her to come on the show. She's very focused on her career, obviously. She's highly educated. She's got these degrees in things that the military is very interested in. That's right. It's Dr. Smith. The evil one, the female one, the really dangerous one. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. No, it's Dr. Kimberly Smith. She's very great. She's a PhD in inorganic chemistry, and she's a teacher at a local community college. So she's really cool, very accomplished. So let's welcome Dr. Kimberly Smith to the show. Dr. Smith, welcome. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing fine. Actually, I was recruited by the Navy after getting my bachelor's. They wanted me to go work on a nuclear sub.
Wow.
So the military was interested in me, but I was not interested in them.
Why not?
I wanted to continue my career of education and learning. I wanted to get my master's degree, then a PhD. So I wasn't ready to leave school yet.
Oh, that's too bad. You could have actually been really powerful. No, not interesting to you. Okay, that's wonderful. So you're more interested in education and those things. That's great. That's very nice to hear. So tell us, how did you get interested in science fiction?
I would say I got interested in science fiction primarily through reading books.
Oh,
Well, a lot of people get into it from TV shows. I was introduced by a really cool aunt that I had to some science fiction books and fantasy books as well. She introduced me to Asimov books, the Foundation series, and I really became interested in that genre and started avidly reading science fiction and fantasy.
that sounds great. So that obviously happened at a really early age, right? So did that affect your future career at all in any way?
I think that spark in me of loving science and science fiction early on
Right.
really did lead me to my career path. I kept my interest in science through middle school and into high school, and it ultimately affected me choosing chemistry and chemical engineering major when I went into college.
Wow. So those are everything you mentioned here is very male dominated. Is that right?
That is correct.
Wow. Okay. So then when you went on and you got a PhD, you were obviously in a field that was very dominated by male scientists, right?
Yes.
So tell me, what was that like? Because obviously, like I'm sure there were a lot of times when you were probably the only woman in the room. Am I right?
That is correct. In
That,
fact, at
yeah. Go
Texas
ahead.
Tech University, I was in an engineering class. It was a physics class for engineering majors, and I was the only female in that class of about 40 students. It really hadn't struck me until I was in college that science was male dominated. In high school, my science classes had males and females in them. But this one particular class, this physics class for engineering majors, I was the only female, and it was kind of awkward and eye-opening that, wow, this is really male dominated. I'm treading new ground here.
Wow, so that's great. It's great that it's nice to hear that early on in your career. I mean, well, when you were much younger, you weren't really you didn't really think about, oh my God, this is a field that a lot of men are going to be in. That's great that you weren't, kind of put off by that, and then you went ahead, right? That's wonderful. So then, tell me more about this. This is amazing that you were the only female. Tell me, what was that like? And
It ended up being great because the professor was definitely on my side. I do remember after one exam, he said that someone had scored 100 on the exam, and a student asked, "Who did that?" And he said, "The female, of course." And that really validated me and gave me strength and power in that class, I think, to be recognized and seen by my instructor as not just because I was female, but I was doing a good job. I was succeeding.
Now, you did mention that he was on your side. How did you get him to be on your side before even, the exam came about?
Um, he had told me, if you need help during office hours, let me know. Email my questions. We have tutoring, made sure I had resources to go for help. I think he knew that it was probably a little awkward being the only female in the class. And maybe he thought I didn't have a study group or something. So he did, talk to me as he did with many of the students. But he knew I was a serious student and he took me seriously. So it was a good experience. That was an influential professor on my early days in college.
So, what would you do now to change things in the field to make it easier for, say, for women students to make it? Is it anything? Do you think there's anything that could be changed?
One thing I would change is having more female instructors at the college level. Most of my chemistry and engineering professors were men, so I really didn't have a role model to look up to. There were hardly any female chemistry instructors at Texas Tech University and at Purdue University, which is where I went. It was mostly men, so I wasn't seeing myself represented. So I think that would be helpful if we had more female educators in those fields so that female students would have role models and someone to look up to and someone to emulate.
So why do you think there are not many female educators? Like you said, there's not that many females like teaching. What do you think the reason for that is?
It's still a male dominated field. There's just few females in the field. A lot of them may go into practice, but very few of them are sticking around to teach at the universities.
Oh, I see. Okay, all right, that's interesting. Maybe there's more money in practice versus teaching. Well, obviously,
Yeah.
right. It's
Yeah.
unfortunate because education should be the most important thing, in a person's life, I think. Anyhow, so let's get on to the UFP. So there's obviously a lot of science fiction clubs out there. What made you pick the UFP?
So I stumbled upon the UFP by Googling Phoenix Star Trek group because I was interested in going to Vegas. Well, I was going to Vegas and I knew there was the Star Trek experience up there. I had not been before. Of course, it's since closed down, but I wanted to know if it was even worth my time to go to the Star Trek hotel. So I was looking for information and Googled Phoenix Star Trek fans and I stumbled upon the UFP.
So it looks like you're kind of a party animal, but you also want to have do some partying, connect with science fiction.
Yes.
All right. Oh, wow. Okay.
Conference by day, but we wanted to explore Vegas by night. So
Wow. All right, Dr. Smith. That's very great to hear. So what kinds of sites? So then I take it then you go to conventions a lot.
at the time, I didn't even know about conventions. So I learned about conventions after I joined the UFP. All I knew about before the UFP was that there was a Star Trek experience in Vegas. I didn't even know about conventions.
Wow. Okay. So then I take it now you go to a lot of conventions then, right?
Now I do two science fiction and Star Trek conventions. Yes, they have cruises. So we're going to go on our first Star Trek cruise next year. But at this point, I've been to Vegas probably 10 times for the Star Trek convention there. I know Phoenix held a Star Trek convention once that we went to. And then we attend some of the local science fiction and literary conventions as well.
So I have to ask you this: are the Star Trek parties at Vegas, which, as everyone knows, is the party central? Are they any crazier? Can someone who's joined the UFP expect to have like extra fun because it's sci-fi?
They're pretty crazy. A lot of the parties
Oh,
will have one or two of
right.
the
Take
actors
note,
there.
everyone. They're a lot of fun. All right, go. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
They are a lot of fun. And sometimes even the actors will show up. So you could be at a Vegas party and in walks, a Star Trek actor from one of your favorite shows.
So, who is the most fun like actor that you met? I mean, someone who's like down to earth and yet a lot of fun.
Garrett Wang.
Oh, that's right. That was
He is a lot of fun from Voyager.
What was his name on Voyager? I forgot. Harry Kim.
Ensign Harry Kim from Voyager. He is probably one of the most personable actors from the Star Trek series. Very down to earth, talks to the fans a lot. Just an all around great guy.
You know, wasn't they going to cancel Voyager, and then they saw that that Garrett Wang was really trending very highly back then, and then they decided to keep it on. Is that right?
That I don't know about. I know the ratings were down a little bit. They did a little bit of cast changings halfway through, brought in 7 of 9, hoping to bring in some different viewers, and it kept it on the air for another 4 years. So it had a 7-year run.
So you're saying 7 of 9 did?
I don't know. I think that was their intent. I know she didn't hurt the ratings.
Well, she's a good actress. I mean, she's nice to look at, obviously, but she's a really good. I think she did a really great job with 7 of 9, the character. Really
7 of 9 characters really evolved in Picard, so it's been a lot of fun seeing that character the last 3 years in the 3 seasons of Picard. Yes.
Oh, that's right. Yes, it's true.
Yeah. And Jerry Ryan is a lovely person. I've met her and had seen interviews with her, and she's very nice.
Oh, that's great. So it looks like Voyager was your favorite of all the Star Treks.
Voyager got me through grad school. So I did not watch TNG when it was on the air. That was my undergraduate years, and I was more interested in partying than watching Star Trek. And Deep Space Nine, I didn't even get that channel. But I was in grad school when Voyager was on the air, and I would watch that every week. So that's really the only Star Trek show I watched when it was airing in its entirety. I watched it all 7 years.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, it's definitely a great show because they went against all the rules and it was still amazing and entertaining. It was, I think it's a great achievement. Like I agree as well. It's I think probably the best one of all the tracks. Let's see what else now. So go ahead and tell me more about what you think about the role of women in science fiction.
So it's interesting. I've been rewatching Battlestar Galactica, and it's so interesting to see how far we've come. I was watching Battlestar Galactica from 78, 79, and the women were just decorative pieces. Right. They did really nothing other than look pretty and provide a romantic interest for Starbuck. So it was kind of hard to watch. And we have just started watching the remake of Battlestar Galactica. And it's so interesting to me that Starbuck is now a female character, a very strong, driven, meaty female character. The president is a female. And Boomer is a female. So I'm having a lot of fun with this. So we've seen progress in women's representation in sci-fi for sure. We also see that with the Strange New Worlds cast. There are more females than men in the ensemble cast. And that's a rarity for Star Trek. Usually there's more men in the ensemble cast than females. Like think back to Next Generation. You had 2 females and the rest were men.
Right.
Yeah. And so for Strange New Worlds to have more females than men, I think that's wonderful. I mean, we still have a captain and a doctor, but a lot of the rest of them are female.
So is that show doing better than the other shows? Of course, Paramount is not going to release those numbers, obviously, but I'm just curious. It'd be interesting to know if the one with the more females in it is doing better, right? I guess we're not going to know.
I guess we won't know. You can look at ratings like on Rotten Tomatoes. Rotten Tomatoes loves Strange New Worlds. They give it a big thumbs up. So
that's really great. That's really nice to hear. So like you said, I guess we've come a long way as far as women in entertainment in general. So that's a good thing, I guess. Is there anything you can think of that can even be better about it or made better?
I think one thing that we can improve upon in the industry is behind the scenes. I've heard that while Star Trek is putting a lot of female actors in the series, in front of the camera, but behind the camera, it's still largely male dominated. So I think we need to see more female directors and producers and writers.
Right.
So that's where we can improve.
I'm sorry to interrupt you there. But no, you're right about that part. I do know from experience that female directors, a friend of mine actually is a director in LA. which, by the way, is not the best city to be in. It's really disgusting and dirty. But never mind. So that's another. That's a minefield right there. They have noticed that a lot of this is very sad fact that a lot of even female actors, when they're approached to sign on to a movie directed by a female, they do not want to sign on. They have more faith in the male directors. And this is actual fact. I know about this, and it's very sad to note. But I'm sure as time goes on, as there are more and more female directors, I think people like women, even women are going to, the female actors are going to warm up to female directors as well. I guess in the whole, on a bigger level, people just need to get used to the idea of women in charge. When you're behind the camera, of course, making a film is a group effort, but when you're behind the camera, you do have, a fair amount of power because you're directing what actually happens in the film.
Yes.
And people, I think they just need to get used to the idea of having a woman in charge. We're getting there, right?
There. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Doctor. So was there anything else you want to talk about the UFP, or anything else that you want to voice?
Well, I love the UFP. I love that it provides an avenue for people of like-mindedness to get together to discuss sci-fi. And it's not just about Star Trek. We discuss other things as well. We have a lot of people that like Star Wars, people who are interested in the Marvel universe. A lot of us love The Mandalorian. Right now we're watching Ahsoka. So it's a lot of fun. It's a fun time right now, I think, in science fiction. And I love Ahsoka, again, because of the strong female characters. So Star Wars is getting on board as well.
Right, that's true. That's true. Yeah, Disney's really going to milk that. But good for them, I guess, right? All right. So, Doctor, if there's nothing else, I have one last question. This is obviously the most important of all.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. Everything is equally important. So you're married, right?
I am married.
Okay. Now, how would you describe how it was when you guys met? Was it like, restrained yet kind of hot, like Spock and T'Pring? Or was it more like, Carol Marcus and Kirk, very cool and very intellectual? Or was it more like, Worf and Kayla, like really steamy?
I would say we were more like Spock and T'Pring.
Okay.
There was attraction there on the inside, but on the outside, we were logical and kept cool. So kind of like Spock and T'Pring in Strange New Worlds. I'd say we're kind of like them. We're both scientists, and so we talked about science and our education, but there was emotions tamped down deep inside that were hot and fiery.
Wow, so they were fireworks, but they're just very, very restrained.
That's right, like a Vulcan.
Okay, that's great. All right, Doctor. I guess that's about. No, it's one last question I have. I know that you were in Moscow, right?
Yes.
So tell us about that. That is very interesting to me. Just tell me a bit more about that.
So I lived in Russia for a year. I was in St. Petersburg. We went to Moscow several times. It was pretty easy for people to spot that I was a tourist because my Russian had quite the accent and I was not fluent at all. So it was sometimes difficult being in Moscow, like asking for directions, with my broken Russian. Sometimes people wouldn't want to give me directions. Sometimes they wanted to charge me more money to go to an opera, a ballet, or a museum than they would a Russian. So yeah, it was very different, but it's a beautiful country. I hate what's going on there right now. It is a lovely, beautiful country with a lot of history. Yeah.
Right. So were the Russians nice? Were they nice? I mean, obviously they all knew you're American, but were they nice? I assume they were very nice people.
Right? I would say they were very nice. They had very little, but they were willing to share. One thing they share a lot of is vodka.
Wow.
I remember for New Year's Eve, people would bring over their homemade vodka from potatoes, and we would share the homemade vodka. Yes.
Wow. So what is your favorite? We didn't address this one. What is your favorite Star Trek drink?
My favorite Star Trek drink is probably Guinan Fizz because I like the cucumbers.
Okay. All right, Dr. Smith. I think that's about it. Oh my God. Tell me how to say go away in Russian. Very important.
Well, I can tell you how to say shut up. So same effect. Zaknis.
Oh, Zaknis. Okay.
Zaknis.
Okay. And on that note, everyone. I will shoot my pie hole. Dr. Smith, thank you so much for coming on the show. And everyone, come back and see us again next week, or when, well, when it happens. We'll go to our website, which is Dr. Smith. That is
United Federation of Phoenix.org.
Oh, thank you. I thought it was .com, but well, I guess they probably go to the same place. But that's great. Yeah, definitely check out the website. Because there's a lot of fun stuff happening there as well. Also, it'll notify you. We have a video page now. It'll notify you when the next one of these amazing videos is going to come out. And I'm telling you right now, you don't want to miss any of these discussions because they're only going to get hotter and hotter as time goes on. So come back and see us. In the meanwhile, everyone, be good, don't speed, and adios.